Okay, hello and welcome to today's Joint Node International and CyberClan webinar, where we will be discussing Cybersecurity 101, steps to secure your network and protect your data. I'm Suleiman Salih from CyberClan, and today I'm joined by a fantastic panel of speakers who will be offering their insights from an insurance and a cyber risk management perspective. So today we have Matthew Lefchik from Node International and my colleagues Paulo, Baptista and Mike Daggett from CyberClan. Matthew, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, thanks for having me, Solomon and the CyberClan team, and obviously for everyone else that's attended today. Again, thanks for taking the time to learn a little bit more. I'm Matthew Lefchik, the AVP of our for Node for the actual sales and risk management. You're going to be really excited to hear a lot of the great details of what we're going to explain and why we partnered up with CyberClan.
Thank you, Matthew. Paulo, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Sally. Hi, everyone. I'm Paulo Baptista. I'm Head of Risk Management Services at CyberClan. I have been in the technology industry by 25 years. I have been in your side of the fence as a client. I know your pains and the pains you face. I know how to minimize them. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulo. And last but not least, Mike, please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, Mike Daggett here. You can find me on LinkedIn as Michael Daggett. I'm an account manager here with CyberClan, responsible predominantly for the US market.
Thank you very much, and thank you to our team here for joining us today and all you participants as well. So in today's webinar, we aim to refresh and develop your understanding of cybersecurity best practices. We will be taking questions from you attendees during the discussion that will be covered by our panel at the end here as well. So please send any questions over via the Q&A section. That section should be accessible to you now, and you should be able to put in any questions that you have throughout the presentation here, and we'll do our best to get round to answering those. Any unanswered questions, we will endeavour to get back to you on those after the webinar is finished there too. So additionally, we do have some poll questions throughout the webinar for all our attendees to participate in. And speaking of which, we have one to get started. We'd like to know a little bit more about who's attending. So if you could please answer the following question, which is which of the following describes your role best? You should have that question come up on your screens now. I'll give you a few moments to answer that, and we will display the results there as well. Okay, brilliant, excellent. If we could bring those results up, and let's get a good understanding of who we have. Here we go. So you should hopefully see some results there, but it seems like we've got a lot of individuals from the insurance side, which is great to see, and a lot of executives and a few others that we haven't expected here on today. So apologies that your role wasn't on there as well, but hopefully we should be addressing and the messaging should be applicable to those of you that have selected that other category here today. So I'll start really with Matthew there from Node International. So Matthew, could you just tell us a little bit about who Node International are and what you do?
Perfect, Solomon. Thank you. And for most of you, you should already know about Node International, but let me just enlighten you a little bit further. So we're a managing general agent, and we're solely dedicated to the commercial and personal risk landscape, providing cyber technology and insurance solutions. So our team expands from the UK to the US as we specialize in delivering in-depth knowledge, problem-solving strategies, and value-added services to our brokerages, relationships, and our insurers. So let's talk a little bit further about the actual CyberClan and why we are, talking about CyberClan. Why are we looking at CyberClan as our value-added partner here? So a couple of things that may not know about me, my background, I came from the cybersecurity world. So it was real simple. When we were evaluating CyberClan's features and benefits, they were founded off of the supporting incident response and claims handling. So that was a perfect alliance partnership within how Node's ecosystem and how we support our brokerages and our insureds, because they're going to be that phone call. They actually work with our breach counsel to support our 24/7 claims assistance, as we should be making sure that you're fully aware once you bind with our policy. But not even just that portion of it. There's many times during the application or these conversations that our team has, and we hear so many times that the clients, especially SME, have some challenges. And that could be related to budget from an OpEx, CapEx, what should they invest in, the lack of resources, compliance, or maybe it's too many tools out there and they need to consolidate. That's the best part. CyberClan is going to be able to support you, not only educate, but also coach you. And you should be aware of this, but this is a very unique way of understanding cyber risk. But people are saying, is cybersecurity, should I have insurance? Should I actually invest in my actual cybersecurity posture? Cybersecurity is not just a nice to have, it's a must have. And the best part about CyberClan, they're going to tailor it to your industry class.
Great. No, thanks for going into that, Matthew. And I mean, from our perspective here, is it, I know you kind of went into why you chose CyberClan as your partner, but how important do you feel it is for your insureds to have a cybersecurity expert on hand?
So that, Solomon, that's a great question. It comes up again a lot of the times when we're evaluating these different applications, renewals, and so on. And so many times we're hearing now, because the markets are adapting these new structures around the security controls and so on. They're always like, do you know someone that we should be provisioned with? Do you have experts that you can align with us? Well, obviously, not only do we have you guys partnered up with us for the claims handling with our legal or with our breach counsel, but you also can provision a prevention and detection model, which is going to be really key, because it's great to truly say you have this insurance policy by Node, but let's talk about how we can actually support you so that the actual policy never gets triggered.
Yeah, excellent. I want to move on to what we can see on the screen there. So CyberClan is working with Nodes to be able to offer a suite of tools and services as part of to offer these to Node insureds free of charge. And Mike, would you like to add your comments on that and work us through those?
Absolutely. So first of all, thanks everyone for joining. I think the true value you're going to get out of this webinar is this slide right here. A lot of times, especially in the small to medium business space, a lot of companies don't know where to turn, where to go, what the next step should be. And we've aligned some resources here in our partnership with Node to give you that kind of initial roadmap as to where to go. So the first thing we'll do is we'll jump on the phone with you for an hour, do a consultation, understand your business, understand what you're doing currently in the cyberspace, and really talk you through some of the next, immediate quick wins to kind of get you going in the right direction. So from this point forward, kind of think of it as you have a cybersecurity expert in your back pocket because of this partnership and relationship. So after that, some of the things we do is we call it a perimeter security review. And you'll forgive me, I'll do this a lot through the webinar, but I like to bring things back to, I like to use analogies and bring them back to kind of things we're familiar with. So perimeter security review, think of it as someone walking around the outside of your current building, peeking in the windows, opening the doors, and just seeing what they can see without doing anything, that's going to compromise the environment. So it really is just to give us an idea of what can the general population, the general public see or learn about your business. And we'll do that perimeter security review for you and give that over to you. If we want to dig a little deeper, we can go into a risk assessment that is kind of establishing a baseline and give you a tool that'll help you walk you through some of the commonly asked questions, some of the things that are frequently forgotten, to kind of set the baseline of where we are today so that we can benchmark forward and say, oh, we're in a much better place 6 months ago or than we were 6 months ago. So on top of that, as we keep going down the line, you've heard the term MDR. Think of it back in the day of Norton antivirus. That's kind of the analogy I use, but MDR is a tool that is just, it's a must have these days. And we find all too often there's companies that don't. So we're offering an MDR service for you to get you so you understand it, so you can see how it works, and then determine what level of service you need afterwards. And then of course, we're big on training. We need you to understand and have your staff trained. So we're offering free security awareness training. So all of that it comes directly from this partnership, because together we realize that the more we can do to prevent your issues, the better off you're going to be down the road.
Thanks for that, Mike. And Matthew, have you got any further comments here on the CyberClan Node International partnership?
I think we already highlighted here on this page, but just look at the amount of features and benefits that CyberClan's already packaged. And most conversations we have with different insureds or even the brokerages, the underwriters, they're always asking, well, what can you do to prevent and mitigate that risk? Folks, they're tailoring it to your industry class. As we see so many different organizations out there, they're asking for, well, I think this partner of ours is doing this. Well, let someone else have a second pair of eyes on it and evaluate, how confident are you within that risk posture and what your tolerances are for that industry class. As you're going to learn later on today, they have a numerous amounts of resources to support you through not only compliance from your managed services, but as you can already see here, just giving you that prelim to make sure you understand the amount of exposure you may be giving out that you didn't know.
Yeah, and I know that we all feel that every insured or every organization should be jumping at the opportunity to take advantage of especially free services here there as well. And there's some contact details at the end of this webinar that you'll be able to reach out to us through, and we'll share those anyway. But if it all fails, go to cyberclan.com or Node International, and you'll be able to find some further information from there as well. So let's get into a little bit about who CyberClan are and what we do. So I'll hand over to Mike to.
Excellent. Thanks again, Sully. So it's important to understand who you're partnered with and who you're doing business with. Not everyone's equal. We know this across multiple different industries and spectrums. And the cool thing about this partnership is that we vetted each other. CyberClan is trying to figure out who Node is trying to figure out who CyberClan is, and we agree that we're a good fit for each other. And then together we agree that we're a good fit for you. And so where we really focus our energy and our effort is that small to medium business size world. And what happens in that space is, generally speaking, the companies are smaller, either just getting started, don't have the staff, or sometimes the budget to afford the enterprise level tools, the top of the top, the best of the best. And so we kind of fill that gap as your partner in a space where we can come in quickly and really take care of your environment. We've been doing this since 2006, so we're well versed at taking care of it. We're headquartered out in Vancouver, and we have an office in London, and of course we handle the US. We have customers globally, 24/7, we're on the clock, always dealing with somebody. Even though we cover the entire globe, our speed and agility isn't impacted. We're able to respond with a swarming kind of effort where if something goes wrong, we jump in really quickly to make sure your needs are taken care of. We have executives and board level expertise from many different industry sectors that really bring their brain and their thoughts into developing the right tools for you. So it really kind of gives you a thought leader, to someone that can really own your security instances without you having to focus on it or worry about it. So that's kind of the benefit really of this partnership, is that you get the enterprise level expertise, but you don't have to kind of pay for the whole gamut, I guess I should say. Rolling into the overview, I guess that's my slide. So CyberClan operates out of three distinct buckets, really kind of three business units, if you will. So The first one is risk management. In the middle, you'll see there managed security, and then on the far right, you'll see incident response. And throughout the course of this webinar, we're going to dive deeper into each of those three and really kind of give you the framework and a very good understanding of what each one is, why it's important, how it ties together, and what you should be doing in each of these areas to kind of really make sure your business is protected. So we'll dive into deeper.
Great. Thank you, Mike, for that. And on to our next poll question of this webinar. Which of the following risk management services do you feel is most important? You should have a list coming up on your screen now, and I'll give you a moment to have a look, evaluate, and give us your answer. It'll be good to find out your feedback here. And we'll give you a few more moments to put your answers in there. 5 more seconds. Be quick. Perfect, great. And then we can show the results. Great, and we can see here from our participants today, the risk management service that you feel most important is vulnerability testing. We've got a few that I say next in line is incident response plans, and then coupled with perimeter scan and penetration tests as the next one there. And then there's a couple of you that seem to not be aware of any of these. So hopefully we'll give you a bit more knowledge now, and we'll segue into introducing Paulo's slide on risk management. And Paulo, please take it away.
Thank you, Sally, and welcome everyone. Why we start with the risk management and the services? Because we definitely need to analyze the business and know what it takes to conduct the business, what are the risk reflexes. So risk management services help companies identify assets, weakness that exploited by a malintentioned actor could result in a significant loss and the business disruption. We all know that as a business is equal to risks. No, we have to take risks to be successful and be competitive. But how much risk are we willing to take, and how we know that? So by CyberClan use a human and risk-based approach. So we help improve your resilience to cyber threats by focus on remediation and security improvement around critical services. So we are not talking about all services. We're not talking about having the same aspect of security and controls in all service. We focus where what is more important for your business to run. So I'll dive into these services, but before at the CyberClan we put together the governance, risk, and compliance close to the technical assessment, because the results from each one, they feed the other and they give overall risk from a human perspective and process perspective to the technology perspective too. So why we order the service at this order here? Because we know that each one of them, it provides input to the next one. And then so at the end, we have a good reflection and a good visibility about the results and what is the current posture and what we want to be in the future. So let's start by the vCISO service. Why this is important? We work close to the client to understand their environment and their current risk profile, where they are and where they actually want to be or they need to be. Not just from an insurance perspective, it helps an insurance perspective, but also from a security perspective and compliance. Some organizations, they need they are in the scope of PCI DSS, they are in the scope of HIPAA and other compliance requirements, governmental and regulatory compliance requirements. Then we jump to security assessment. With the help of security frameworks that is convenient to your environment, to your type of environment, we identify gaps, provide recommendations, and we also provide you a detailed roadmap fix them. Like, we cannot fix everything at the same time. It's impossible with the threat landscape and the amount of weakness that and the risks that we find in today in the technology. It's very difficult for a small mid-sized company to fix everything. We need to focus on what is important, what is critical, and we help you build this roadmap. Then we jump to the education and training. We always advise our customers to continuously train their staff members. They are the first line of defense, and in most cases, the most effective one. People is the first and foremost important pillar in the creation of the company. So we are talking about our staff members, the folks that we work every day. So we want to make sure that they are trained for the security threats they are facing, not just from a logical perspective, but also from a physical perspective. Then all these controls, they need to be tested, no? So we need to know how effective they are. So we have the tabletop exercise. We test above controls to understand the maturity towards addressing the risk at an expected level, no? So we want to make sure if we need to increase the control or we need to reduce the control. Then we jump to the other bracket where we're gonna test the technology that we apply. Okay, then you jump. So configuration assessments. This many times this control is ignored, and actually we saw from the result of the poll, it was 0% on configuration assessments. Think about making that with this control here. Think about making the attacker life very difficult and time consuming at the point they will give up. So this is even before technology, before security, cybersecurity. This is at IT, is technology, is how we build our switches, how we build our networks, how we design and architect our controls. The technology controls, not even security controls. Security controls, they come after. A simple segmentation of the network, proper segmentation of the network, a simple hardening of the operating systems that we use, a simple hardening of IoT devices. Our networks, home networks, company networks, they are flooded with IoT devices. Segmenting that, proper configuration of that, proper firewall rules. It makes the life very difficult for an insider threat or someone coming from outside. Very important control. Then we go to vulnerability assessments. Vulnerability assessments will provide an overall view of how vulnerable our technology is. And through that, we can apply remediations, we can patch the systems, we can apply configuration or configuration controls. Coming from the assessment, they will improve that vulnerability landscape. With penetration testing, we go a little bit further. So we simulate an attack exploiting the vulnerabilities that we see on the assessment, and not disrupting without disrupting the service. No, we don't want your service to disrupt. This in a secure way. We conduct those tests and we provide you feedback. Phishing exercises provide good metrics about training provided to users and evaluate their capability to detect security issues. No, like I said, this is not logical only; it's physical too. With still a lot of companies and a lot of businesses that still work with stuff on premises. So the physical security portion is very, very, very important too. So the primary goal of risk management service is to reduce the recovery time in case of a breach. The above services help you provide and achieve insurance and improve your cybersecurity posture. Let's pick up
Sorry, Paulo, go on, carry on.
Good. So I will pick up an example of a process that we have seen, an example of process. So business continuity, disaster recovery, and incident response plan. They are huge processes, no? So they don't need to be huge, they just need to be worked on. And they need to be, they need more attention than, for example, a policy, do a different departmental process. Why those processes, they are very important? Because in a position of a disaster, when you face a disaster, these documents, if they are up to date and if they are tested, they will make the difference that how long your business will be out of business and how much loss you're gonna have. By the way, CyberClan help also you build those programs.
Excellent. No, thanks, Paulo, for giving us that high level of the risk assessment services that we would recommend and what's available there as well. So that's really good. Again, it is just a high level today. If you want to find out some more information, we would love to go more into detail with the services with you, and you can book your free consultation service to do so there as well. But I mean, you mentioned something there, Paulo, about the configuration assessment, and it seemed like no one thought that was important there, but you've actually highlighted it as one of the most important areas there too. So you know, could you give us a little bit of detail of exactly what a configuration assessment is done on? And what a typical process, how long that typically takes if someone wanted to employ someone to do that for them, like CyberClan.
Absolutely, thank you, Sally. This is a good question. So why I give a lot of importance to the configuration assessment, because the systems, they are built in a way that is easy to use. No, so the vendors, they want us to use the systems, and if you make that that initial configuration difficult, we'll not be using technology today. No, so that's the easy portion. But we need to make sure that the systems that we deploy, they will contain confidential data. They contain health data. They will contain credit card data. So we need to do a little bit more, like configuring operating systems, configuring networks, segmenting network. This is just an example of some configuration that we can do. In terms of configuration assessment, what we do from on-premise devices, cloud environments. We normally, depends the size of the system. It could be a simple Windows system, a simple Linux system that it takes a couple of days, to a complete environment that it could take weeks and sometimes months. No, it really depends of the size of the environment, but it's really a very good security control. And I advise everyone to assess their configurations, because as we buy from the stores, those systems, they are not prepped for security. They are prepped for usability. We need to go a little bit further, assess those configurations and see what we don't need. We turn off, and then we just leave available the functionalities that we need to conduct the business.
Excellent. No, thanks for that, Paulo. And but just, you know, going over what you said and to kind of recap there, it seems like you know, some of the services that we would kind of recommend as a minimum is a configuration assessment of certain systems, education of your staff, because that's a big factor. I think I saw a statistic the other day that said that 90% of breaches happen through user error or some sort of user there as well. So education must be key, I guess, there in that situation, and to ensure that you have an incident response plan in place, because if there is an incident, I mean, they could be quite minor, right, or they could be very significant. You need to know how to react and how to respond to that incident, and that's what the plan's there to do as well. So once again, if you've got any questions and you want to dive deeper into that, please use the Q&A, and like we said, we can arrange follow-up calls for those that want to have one-on-one sessions with the team here as well. So on to our next poll question here. What percentage of threats originate from inside an organizations? So we would like to know what you think. So make your best guesstimate on what percentage of threats originate from inside an organization. You should have that up on your screen now. I'll give you a few moments to make your selection and submit. Bit 5 more seconds. Great, thank you. Let's get those results up. And here we go. So we have 46% saying 60%, 31% of us saying 80%, and 23% of us saying 40%. So Mike, I know you've got a little bit more insight into this, so give us the answer.
This is one of those fun questions where you're all right. And generally speaking, what the point we are trying to get across here is I think a lot of times companies spend so much time preparing for attacks from China or attacks from Russia, and they forget about, you know, all of your users who potentially could make havoc inside your environment. So statistically, it's a little about around 60%. So 60% was probably the most correct answer, but you know, it's a moving target. So anything above 40 to 50%, you chose the right thing. So the key is to be aware of, it's just as important to take care of the inside of your environment as it is to take care of the outside of your environment.
Great, thanks, Mike, for that. And we've got one more for you guys, so just to keep you on your toes. Which managed security service would you like to understand better? That should be up on your screens now, and there's a few options there. MDR versus EDR versus XDR, security information and event management, managed email security, or all of the above. I'll give you a few moments to make your choices and press submit. Give that 5 more seconds. And fantastic. Let's get those results up. Okay, here they are. So, 47% of you would like to know more about all of them, which is good to know. And we're going to give you some insight into some of these now. But once again, please ask some questions if we don't quite cover it. There as well. And then out of the 3, it seems MDR versus EDR versus XDR is the hot topic here as well. So let's talk about managed security and why we need managed security and what function it plays in today's organizations and cybersecurity. And we'll hand over to Mike for that.
Yeah, so great. That's a great, those questions, the answers are really good because they're all across the board, including the 47% that said all of the above. And I think sometimes when you're asked a question of what would you like to learn more about, all of the above is generally a really good answer. So great work there. We'll go into the differences between MDR, EDR, SIM, email security, and all of those pieces. We feel strongly that the term managed stays in front of them. And the analogy I'm going to use on this slide is, you think about if you relate it to physical security, if you were to buy video cameras and place them, either inside or outside your office, but you never recorded the video feed and you certainly weren't monitoring the video feed, the camera might as well just be one of those dummy cameras that you can buy that doesn't really have any purpose other than to serve as a visual deterrent. So having a software on your machine may act as a visual deterrent in some ways, but if you're not operating it properly, if it's not configured properly, if you're not monitoring it actively, it's not doing you a whole lot of good. So endpoint protection is kind of the term we use today that, back in the day, we used to call it Norton antivirus or antivirus of some sort. And now we know it's much more deeper than just viruses, right? There are active people actively trying to hack into your network, and we need to stop them from doing so. So we need what we call endpoint protection. Your endpoint is, of course, your servers, it's your workstations, it's your firewalls. You need some sort of protection on each of your endpoints that's going to stop a threat because someone is managing it for you. You also want the ability for that someone to probably take some sort of action. So if we see something malicious, you want us to be able to stop the threat, contain that host, and stop it from spreading. So that's kind of the difference between MDR, EDR, and XDR. So EDR would be unmanaged, MDR would be managed, and XDR is the ability to continue to take more action and deeper into different devices on your network, your firewalls, and your endpoints as well. So that's the key there. Your security information event manager, your SIM, That's kind of a single pane of glass that takes all of the alerts from all of your devices, correlates them into one easy to understand chart where we can sit there and start correlating attacks and say, the person who's attacked your firewall is the same person who's attacking your email server. So now we have a coordinated attack. We need to take a little more deeper action. And you need something that kind of collects everything into one single repository so that you can certainly make heads and tails out of all the potential data that comes through. Having email security is kind of the last tool in this set. The thing about email security is a lot of times we think in terms of having a password, having multi-factor authentication keeps your email secure. And the reality is there's much more to it. You need something that's going to block a phishing attack. You need something that's going to analyze the links in your email and make sure the links aren't pointing to malicious sites. You need something that maybe understands how you do business and how you communicate. And so it starts to recognize anomalies inside your email environment. So all three of those tools make up what we call probably the bulk, a good aspect of having managed security. But what's important to understand is the partnership here with Node now gives you the access to a comprehensive protection plan where we're going to sit down in that first call with you and say, hey, what do you have in place and how can we enhance it? And that comprehensive protection, if you think about, this multi-layered approach, and we know that there isn't a single product out there that will cover you from A to Z, right? So there isn't, you can't just go buy one cybersecurity tool and everything's good and you're good to go. You have to buy multiple tools to do multiple things to solve multiple problems. The challenge is sometimes some of these tools overlap and some tools do the exact same thing as another, but they enhance the coverage a little deeper. So if you're trying to protect the entire environment, you've got to layer things in so that every gap is protected, knowing that to cover every single gap gets quite expensive. So that's the beauty of having a cyber insurance policy is you go through this risk assessment process that Paulo talked about. You understand where all your risks are. You then put in a managed security piece to manage or mitigate as many risks as you think makes sense financially and security-wise. And then you leave the last bit of risk open to exposure, but it's covered with your insurance policy. Those three things working together will keep you in a good spot to make sure that everything is going good, the business is going to continue running and operational, and everything's going to flow smooth. Now, our team certainly comes in. We're not IT people in that sense of the lane. We're strictly security people. So we have expert security knowledge, goes well beyond what a normal IT person is responsible for day to day. IT people are phenomenal. They make up a bulk of keeping your network operational, but there's an additional layer. And so if you think again in the physical security space, it's a lot like your home. If you put a lock on the front door, you put a lock on the windows, your home is pretty secure. And that's kind of the IT definition of secure. And then ADT or Brinks or someone comes in and says, well, we can come in with a security alarm system. That's where the security professionals and managed service comes in on top of that as well. Because of our partnership with so many different companies, we can get custom solutions down that make it really cost effective for you. And I know that's kind of a buzzword and people say, you really show me, but we're able to offer you enterprise level security at a price that it's the same price per endpoint that the big guys are paying, but you only have a handful of endpoints. Generally speaking, some of the big players in the market aren't interested in protecting 50, 60, 70 endpoints, a dozen endpoints. They're interested in protecting thousands and thousands of endpoints, where we fill that gap to make it cost effective for you to have the top of the line security going into this. We can scale as you scale. If your environment continues to double or grow, or if you have a year where you reduce it, we can certainly be flexible to make sure that your environment is completely covered. But the true peace of mind comes when you have outsourced your security to a third party. You've handled that responsibility onto them. You can breathe easy knowing that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, there is someone physically watching what's going on in your environment. And we respond within minutes to anything we see that's kind of malicious, and we let you know instantaneously, hey, here's what we see, let's shut it down. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, Friday afternoon, we're there to make sure that someone's always keeping an eye on your environment. So it really gives you this real-time protection versus you being protected some of the time and unprotected some of the other times. So that's the beauty of managed security. I hope it kind of sums it up quite well, but happy to dig deeper into it for anyone who wants to ask questions or go deeper into it.
Excellent, Mike. And we are starting to get a few questions coming through here as well. But just quickly on this, so I am conscious that, it could sound extremely complicated, and it sounds like there's a lot to think about here. But I think it would be good for our audience here for you to give them a bit more understanding on who CyberClan's SOC team are and what they do and how we simplify this for our clients.
Certainly. So obviously we are a managed services security company, and MSSP is the industry term, but that's a fraction of the business that we do. So we have a SOC 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're fully remote. The SOC manager is phenomenal to keep everyone on task. And so we have a full service SOC running continuously. In addition to that, we operate out of the other lanes where we're doing the risk assessments and doing the incident response services as well. So we're a full service cybersecurity company that has an MSSP built into a third of our business.
Great. No, thanks, Mike. And you kind of answered one of the questions that have come up there, which was, is CyberClan an MSSP? And yes, you've answered that. Yes, we are. And we are also an incident response company and a risk management services company. They're the three core pillars that I think we saw on the previous slide that we operate from. But essentially we specialize in cybersecurity, and that's all we do there as well. And then the Security Operations Center runs 24/7. That's our own in-house Security Operations Center. And as Mike mentioned here as well, is we work with the best-in-class tools that are available out there. And we're able to, we don't commit our clients to those tools. We have agreements with those vendors separately, and we constantly testing those tools to make sure that you're getting the best service from us, because we utilize these tools to be able to deliver those services there as well too. So that's Mike, did you have any other comments before I move on?
No, I think that covers it. I think we're good.
Excellent. So we'll move on to our next poll question, and then we'll start getting through to some of the questions that are coming up in the Q&A as well. So this is the last one, I believe, of today. And so what is the average time to detect and contain a data breach? And the answer should be there on your screen. And yeah, it'll be good to see what your best guesstimates are on this and what you feel the answers are there. So again, what is the average time to detect and contain a data breach? We'll give you a few more moments to answer that and submit your answers. Perfect. Let's get those results up. And here we are. So 42% of the audience think it's going to take 270 days. No one thought it would take 360 days. That's quite a long time, 270 days. And then 33% of you thought it would take 34 days. So there's quite a significant divide there between 34 and 270. Mike, give us the answer.
This is another one of those questions where, we went with an average here, and generally speaking, 270 is the answer that we're seeing. And the reason for that is there's a couple different factors that come into play. And the question was, how long does it take to detect it and then to contain it? And so the detection phase, sometimes what we're seeing is threat actors, they're breaching environments and they're sitting in there for hundreds of days, learning everything they can about the environment before they launch their full attack that you notice. I think we see sometimes, or we expect that a data breach or an encryption of our network is just going to show up today, and all of a sudden the blue screen or a ransomware note pops in. Generally speaking, if you get to that point, they have been in your environment. Through our analysis and for our forensics, we have noticed they've been in the environment for hundreds of days at that point. Then comes the process of remediating and getting the business, containing it, getting the business back up and running. So the takeaway here is, man, we really want to prevent it, right? You don't want to have someone have access to your systems for 270 days prior to you knowing about it. So the best thing is to have the tools in place. When we talked about the SIM earlier, having a SIM in place that can kind of help us go backwards in time into your environment, looking at the logs and looking at the data, we can then pinpoint exactly when your environment was breached. And then because we can pinpoint it, we can track their movements through your network so we know exactly what they've done. And obviously the best defense is to keep them out in the first place. So
great. And that segues nicely into this incident response slides there as well. So, you know, in the event that you do suffer a cyber incident of any sort, whether it's quite minor or significant in nature there as well. Obviously, if you have a Node cyber insurance policy, then you can refer to that to reach out and start making a claim. That will come through to CyberClan, and CyberClan will assist you there. And Mike, give us a lowdown on exactly what, you know, what to expect, what these insured should expect from CyberClan's incident response services at a time where they need some emergency assistance.
Certainly. So just like calling 911, right? If something goes wrong with your computer, you want to have quick access to somebody to come do the restoration. And you go back to physical security. If something were to happen personally, and you called 911, if the 911 operator said, which police department would you like to respond? And you had to figure out which one was the best. You don't want to lose that valuable time. So the partnership with Node is that we figured out that Node has figured out that, hey, we want CyberClan to respond 100% of the time to any incident that you have. So you call our incident response hotline, within 15 minutes, we're on the phone with you, and we're starting to contain and remediate the attack inside your environment. That first call, what we're going to kind of do is really just understand who you are, what's going on, and then we're going to assemble the correct team to bring in the resources that we need to keep moving forward. We'll schedule follow-up calls, but maybe it's every hour, maybe it's every day. Certainly depends on the nature of the breach, but we're going to instantly be there for you. The reason that's important is, you know, if something goes wrong, we don't want you trampling all over the crime scene. We don't want you kind of trying to fix it yourself. We want to preserve as much evidence as possible, and we want to make sure that we get you back up and running as quickly as possible. So we respond really quickly to get the services contained. Inside our incident response bucket, I kind of alluded to it, we do complete forensics analysis. We can go back as far as the data will allow us and tell us exactly how the threat actor got in, every single movement, every file they've touched, every server they've touched, and we'll kind of give you a complete report. So in the event that you have to report or not report the nature of the breach, you want to know exactly what happened so that you can report accurately as needed. Should you need to pay a ransom demand, you've probably seen all the horror stories in the news where, you know, companies are asked to pay millions of dollars in ransom demands. We will do all the negotiations with the threat actor, and so we can negotiate the price down quite a bit. For one, we certainly have the ability with crypto on hand so that we can pay the ransom demand. We don't ever want you to have to pay it, because unfortunately we've seen times where the threat actor tells the victim how to buy crypto, and that's just as much of a hack as the first one, and it just continues to get deeper and deeper. So we say, leave it to us. We'll do the negotiations and make sure we pay them to get your data back, or whatever the scenario looks like. We can investigate into email boxes. So if your email became compromised, we can go into the email server, it's cloud-based, and say, you know, again, how often, how long have they been in? Have they replicated your mailbox? Which emails have they accessed, downloaded? We can go deep into getting you back up and running. And so the key takeaways here is we want to respond super duper quickly with an expert staff that strictly is a security focused staff to rebuild your network, to contain everything going on, minimize the impact to your operation, and get you back up and running as quickly as possible, knowing at times it could be weeks or 2 weeks to get you back up and running, sometimes further, but our goal is to get you back up and running quickly. In some cases, the way we've operated is we can bring up certain parts of your business that are clean. so you can operate some aspects of your business while we're still cleaning up the other aspects, and we'll kind of walk you through all that. But the takeaway here is, if something doesn't look right, something doesn't feel right, it's a quick call to us. Our team quickly jumps on the phone with you to walk you through whether it's something that we need to take further action on or not.
Thanks, Mike. And it's great to hear, what sort of services available to cyber insurance policyholders there as well. And, if there is anyone that hasn't got a cyber insurance policy, we would highly recommend that you get one. And obviously, look at Node International's website here. You'll have direct access to some of the services that we've spoken about here today as well. But in particular, we are available to those that aren't insured as well, if they want to reach out to us. But the great thing about having insurance is you have that expert assistance straight away, and it's available to you through your cyber insurance, and you don't have to pay the full amount of all of these services there as well, because they could be extremely costly there too. And some of the figures are eye-watering, unfortunately, there as well. But let's move on to, I think, what the slide that everyone's been waiting for here, and some of the steps that we would recommend to secure your network and protect your data. And Mike, I'll let you talk through this one here.
Absolutely. So just before I go into this, when I talked earlier on the previous slide about incident response, there's no cost to reach out to us. Reach out to us, let us know what's going on. We'll assemble a team to help you, and then from there we'll let you know what the remediation looks like and would cost in the future. But that initial call does not cost you anything to get some quick help, some hand holding right away. But now, steps to secure your network. These are kind of important, and they probably should be done, and probably this is a good order to do them in. But you absolutely need to have a cyber insurance policy. The cost of a data breach these days is just astronomical. And so you need to minimize the risk as much as possible with steps 2 through 5, but then you need the rest of the risk you need to pass on to someone who's going to cover it. And that's step 1. So get a cyber insurance policy, develop an incident response plan, and test your incident response plan. If you need to know how to respond, and just like a pilot has a checklist, or if you go into any emergency situation, most people are really just operating off of a checklist. They're not allowing themselves to think in that environment. They just want to say step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, do it. Now, with both of these documents, you want to make sure that you have access to them in the event of emergency. So if you have an incident response plan, or you have an insurance policy, and they're sitting on your machine, the same machine that gets hacked and encrypted, and you don't have access to them, now you're in the middle of what do? We don't know. So you want to print these out. You want to secure them in a separate location, and you want to test your incident response plan frequently. We've seen incidents where companies have an incident response plan, but it's a 1.5 years old, and players have moved, companies have moved, they've added new offices, they've added new servers, and then they go to work through their plan, and it doesn't work. So you want to develop a plan and test it regularly to make sure it still works. After that, you want to take advantage of the risk assessment, risk management services, where you need to really understand what's at risk. How much is the business bringing in? What holes would need to be covered? What does our perimeter looks like? Can a threat actor hack us pretty easily by getting into the environment? And so doing all of those tests lets you know just how vulnerable you are to someone who really wants to come in and wreak havoc in your environment. So the analogy I'll use there is, think of it like TSA, airport security. Airport security, from time to time, they send people through with illegal weapons or whatever on them to see if the staff is trained to handle them, detect them, and then what to do. It's all done in a safe fashion. It's all controlled, but it's a real world test to see, does our security really work? And that's important that you come in and test yourselves every once in a while to make sure. You can have the greatest plans in place, but if they're not executed properly, it doesn't really matter. And we can come in and certainly help you test all of your security measures. Everything starts with your staff. There's a lot of threats that could be minimized if the staff just knew how to respond, or was better educated on what to respond to. Having a formal training program or specifically around cybersecurity, how to recognize a phishing email, what to do if you have a phishing email, how to recognize an endpoint breach or a data breach or an email compromise, and then kind of have those training sessions and the tools in place so that everyone becomes a kind of a first line of defense. And we're not big on going through the process and poking people in the eye saying, you missed this question. We're really big on using that as an opportunity to say, hey, maybe someone didn't know this. And man, it's so much nicer that we're able to tell them in a controlled environment than them having to learn it, unfortunately from a threat actor in a bad environment. So training is certainly key. And then the tools we talk about on the managed security side, having an MDR in place, having a MXDR in place, having email security in place, additional to the security layers you have now. If you remember, I talked about, locking the front door is no longer good enough. And so you have to take additional steps, and having those tools in place ahead of time really keeps you in a place where you can feel good about it. And then you pass the last bit of risk off to the insurance carrier.
Thanks, Mike, for going through that. And I believe these are some great first steps for everyone to ensure that they're checking these boxes and they're making sure that they're doing this at a minimum. But something that we hear often is, well, I have cyber insurance, so why should I bother with the other steps? Because in the event that I'm come under attack, I'm covered, right?
Yeah, you're covered, and so it's a lot like car insurance, and you can have full replacement value on your car. But man, I tell you, being without a car for a week is not fun. And, maybe there's injuries involved because you got in an accident. So just having someone cover the cost aspect of it is not enough. You really want to go a little bit deeper and say, I really don't want to get in a car accident. I don't ever want to use my car insurance. But if for some reason financially it's going to kill me if I need to have that policy in place. So cyber is the same way. Is you don't want to suffer attack, you don't want to suffer a breach, but if for some reason you've done your best effort to mitigate it and something still happens, you don't want it to financially ruin your company because you don't have the resources on hand to cover the cost.
Great. Now, I like the analogy there as well. So make sure you maintain your car, make sure you buckle up and have airbags, right? So all good. And we kind of get in here to time, so it would be great to answer some of the questions that we've had here as well. But so I think let me go through, because there's a few questions that have come through here. So someone's asking, what's the difference between Node International and CyberClan? Matthew, I'll let you take that one.
Well, perfect, Solomon. Thank you. Obviously, Node International, what Mike was just actually explaining is we're truly the policy holder. So when you're looking at the actual sublimits, you're looking at the coverages, looking at how to apply for that, and use that analogy very similar to a car or your auto, your home, your life insurance. That is what we are partnering up with and supporting you all in. Where CyberClan then again is going to justify working on all those resilience opportunities from a prevention, detection, and really making sure that we do not have a claim come in so that we can mitigate all risk as possible.
Thanks, Matthew. And there's another one here actually for you. It's saying, what coverage do I get with my cyber insurance policy?
So good question. Obviously, every industry class and every kind of application or kind of what your desired needs are is going to be a little bit different, especially if you're, have different requirements from your contract and so on. Bottom line is you're going to get your first party. We obviously have different line items and coverages that are going to talk around, as you just heard, like ransom, social engineering. These are some of the preferred attacks, even your wire transfers, where it's more to the actual dotted lines of your flawless controls of your internal employees that may have accidentally been spoofed on an actual wire transfer, social engineering, whereas it's really just looking at someone manipulating their email and disguising them to do something very prompt, urgently, trying to get that particular item out of them. And then ransomware extortion. You do receive that as well, of course, but then there's different coverages. That's why it's very important to not only speak to myself and to my other colleagues on our team, especially there's a lot of you on this area, brokers and underwriters, that can itemize the value of all the different policies and which ones are actually more valuable.
I'll even chime in here too. The other thing that I think is beneficial is having some of these tools in place ahead of time allows the insurance carrier to bring in a much better or much more custom policy for you, and it may be cheaper in the long run because you've proven to them that you're a very low risk. And so what you're trying to do is make sure that, again, back to the car insurance world, is if you went to apply for car insurance and you said, I have no airbags, I have no seatbelts, I drive 1,000,000 miles an hour and whatever, they're going to either not insure you or that you're not going to be able to afford the premium. But if you came back and said, no, I've been to every safe driver school, the car has 50 airbags, all that stuff, then they say, well, the likelihood of us having to pay out if you get in a wreck is really low, so your policy becomes cheaper. So come see us as well if you were either denied insurance or having a hard time getting insurance, or you're about to renew your insurance, and maybe we can put some things in place that'll help you get your policy renewed and at a much more affordable piece for you.
No, great. That's a great point there, Mike, too. There's a question here for you. So is there a particular bundle that offers all of these services you are describing?
I think that's where we shine, right? Is we don't bundle something together in a sense where buy package A and buy package B. We sit with you and understand exactly what you need and only put in the tools that make most sense for you. So we have access to just about everything that's out there. And we'll piece it together in a customized solution to get you exactly what you need, and then we'll certainly, the more you buy, the cheaper it gets, is the term we kind of joke about. But the goal really isn't to get you to buy a whole bunch of stuff, because I think that's a lot of people's goal is, oh, the more you buy, the better you're protected, and that's simply not the case. And a lot of times you can be very well protected at a minimal spend because you bought the right things, and that's what we want to help you do.
Great there, guys, and really fantastic discussion here. I know we're slightly over time, so I'm going to rush to end this here, but thank you all to our fantastic panelists for joining in and being part of this discussion here today. Thank you to the Gnomes International team in front of us and behind the scenes for making this happen, and I hope that all attendees today have enjoyed it here as well. We will be sending out the replay link to anyone who registered for today's webinar. Please feel free to send this on to your colleagues or contacts, anyone that you feel will benefit in viewing this here as well. If you do have any further questions or we didn't get around to answering your question here today, please do reach out to us directly, and we'll be more than keen to answer those for you in a timely fashion. But thank you very much once again to everybody here, and see you next time.